Hey guys, Mike here from Lunch Money Comics. It's lunch and I have a little bit of time, which means it's time for another Lunch Money Comics lunch break, where I go into a really cool store and try to find some comic books in about 20 minutes or less. And once again, I am back at the terrific Zombie Hideout in Springfield, Massachusetts. Let's see what we can find. And all of these are just completely random. I mean, you could spend weeks going through these and not find anything you're interested in. This is crazy. I don't have enough time to ever go through these. Pretty crazy. Actually, a couple Excaliburs I'm looking for. Let's see if I can dig them out. When you're in a rush, guys, all you can really do is just kind of go through fast, get an idea of what's in the box. Again, in this case, it's really hard because there's no rhyme or reason to what's in here. So I might very well be skipping over some stuff, but that's the problem with a Lunch Money lunch break. Especially in a store this big. I absolutely loved this show as a kid. And then down here, we have all of the 50-cent comics. And these are all sorts of random, different publishers, you know. We got some Valiant, we got some Dark Horse. Oh, there's some DC in there. Not any big titles though, and they're obviously not in great shape because people thumb through them with no bags, and that happens too. It makes it very hard to search these safely without damaging them. So I'm going to use two hands and give a couple of these boxes a once over. You have no idea what you're going to find. Let's try some Green Lantern here. actually curious about these 1602s. If I can find like a first, oh, there you go. I think that's number 1. Yeah, number 1 of 5. I'd be interested in checking that out. So just some random letter U's here. I've never even heard a lot of these titles. Oh, I know Usagi Yojimbo though. Winter. Looks like it's related to Walking Dead. Oh, I can't get this stuff. That's Ultraman. That's cool. I have no idea what this is, but it's Ultraman and it's textless cover. Might be worth something. Cool. Oh, Dave Stevens. Comico. Cool. Love it. All right, so the last time I was here, I did a random pull from a random box just to see what I end up with. Let's do the same thing right now. All right, so whatever I get is what I get. We're in the Batman. I'm pretty sure this is Batman. Let's do this one. Dark Knight 3, The Master Race, Book 1. Cool. But of course, I can't leave without checking the wall books and the ones in the case. So we get some first Carnages there, including the second printing. Ah, they get some big boy books here that I didn't have before. Must have got a collection in. Interesting. What else we got? Some slab books. Prices are a little high on these. Yep. That's a book I've been looking for a while, actually. All right, guys, as usual, I was in there a little bit longer than I expected to be. It's just too big of a store, and I just kind of go down that rabbit hole of just looking in random boxes. It's just so much fun to have a treasure hunt like that. So ended up with a little stack of comic books, pretty good for a lunch money lunch break. Let's go home and I'll show you guys everything I found. So there you go. This is another Lunch Money Comics lunch break video, once again at the awesome Zombie Hideout in Springfield, Massachusetts. Now, I love making these videos, guys, for a few reasons. One, they're really easy to make. You know, I'm not there very long, half an hour or less. I'm already out and about. I don't take a lot of footage, so I don't have a lot of editing to do. And I like these shorter format videos because I can put them out whenever. I can put them out in the middle of the week or on a Friday. I can move things around, and it's a nice sort of a break to the really long edits I have to do for flea markets and comic shows, things like that. But the bigger reason is that hunting for comic books in this way, cheap comic books, going through long box after long box of just random stuff, trying to find, you know, hidden treasure, that's Lunch Money Comics, right? That really speaks to the way I've always collected. And I feel far more comfortable buying a small stack of cheap books than I do buying really big, expensive ones. Actually, I spent a grand total of $22, and I'm just as happy with this little stack of cheap comics as I am against anything big I've ever gotten. On top of that, I've also been trying to save money lately. Over the last month or so, I've really tried to cut back on my comic book spending, mostly because I know there's a couple of bigger events coming up I'm probably going to have to spend some more money at. And so with that in mind, I've been buying less, also selling more. I've recently sold some comic books at another comic book show, which was really nice. So with that in mind, it's a great way for me to go out, still hunt for comic books, but not feel like I'm breaking the bank, right? Get to scratch that comic hunting itch on a Lunch Money Comics budget. So
I have a small stack of comic books I want to share with you guys. Before I show you what I got, if you like this sort of stuff and you want to support the channel, head on down, like, comment, and subscribe. And of course, follow me on Instagram under Lunch Money Comics IG. So first, let me remind you guys of what the pricing is at this place. So yes, they do have some wall books and some books in like glass cases, and there are a few long boxes where they're individually priced, but for the vast majority of their comic books, they're not priced. And if they're loose, they're 50 cents. If they're just in a bag only, it's $1. And if they're bagged and boarded, they're $3 each. And if you get 4 of those, you get a 5th one for free. Well, this first comic book is just in a bag, so it should have been $1, but I think he only charged me 50 cents once I looked at my receipt. And it's this. So this is X-Men Unlimited number 30. I have no idea what happens in this book, guys. It's from 2001. I got this because, one, I am a huge X-Men fan, and 2, it's a cool homage to the Beatles' Abbey Road album cover. I just thought it was really cool. Happy to pick this up for 50 cents. Okay, so next we have a book that takes place in an alternate Marvel timeline, and not the last time I'm going to say that on this video, and it's this. So this is 1602 Fantastic Four number 1. So the 1602 universe started in 2003, I believe, and in this imprint, it's sort of a what if, you know, superheroes came into being 400 years earlier in the Elizabethan era rather than the 20th century. And so we have lots of different, you know, superheroes we know and love, like the Avengers and, you know, the Fantastic Four and Spider-Man, but it's set during 1602. You know, I'm familiar with, you know, these characters, you know, they've crossed over in other things like Secret Wars, but I've never actually read any of the 1602 books. So when I saw this first issue of Fantastic Four, $3, absolutely, guys. I'm willing to check it out. I thought it was pretty cool. Next up, speaking of alternate universes in Marvel Comics, this next comic book I actually already own. I don't know where it is. It's put away somewhere, but I actually have it, but I want to talk about it on the channel and picked up another copy. And it's this. This is Ultimate X-Men number 7, and it's part of the Marvel Ultimate imprint. So in the early 2000s, Marvel came out with, you know, this Ultimate universe where they reinvented all the Marvel characters, retelling of Marvel character stories, only it was supposed to be more adult, more steeped in realism, more gritty, and just a different, more adult take on the Marvel universe. And I wasn't really into it, like at all. I didn't really care about it. I'm like, what are they doing? You can't reinvent Marvel Comics, come on. Until one time in a comic book store, I saw this comic. And I had to have it. This, of course, is the ultimate version of Nightcrawler, my favorite character. And he's more or less the same character. It's the same sort of superpowers. He can teleport and kind of cling to walls and stuff like that. But look how cool he is. Instead of that sort of purpley pink bamf that you have when he teleports, he had this like swirling golden energy. His eyes lit up. And he was actually a member of the Weapon X program, the same one that, you know, Wolverine was part of. So I saw this. I'm like, okay, I gotta read this series. And I started reading the Ultimate X-Men storyline. And I didn't love it because I'm such a old-fashioned, you know, stand for the original X-Men. But I thought it was interesting. It was an interesting take on those characters, especially someone like Magneto. I've always said I love Magneto. I like him more as an anti-hero or a hero. And in this storyline, he is a flat-out bad guy, like a bad villain. But hey, I was there for it. I thought it was pretty cool. Yeah, and then I stopped reading after a while, but I thought it was a pretty neat storyline, and it was different. But it's worth bringing up because the Ultimate, you know, universe actually did have a lasting impact on Marvel Comics and also on the MCU. A lot of the elements from this Ultimate universe did trickle into the MCU. Most notably, the Nick Fury of the Ultimate universe looks just like Samuel L. Jackson, which of course they went and cast in that role. But also there's some major characters that came in this imprint, such as the evil Reed Richards called the Maker, who was definitely a major antagonist in Secret Wars. And also, of course, most famously, Miles Morales as the new Spider-Man. Cool series, storylines. Let me know down in the comments if you're a big, you know, Ultimate reader. Again, I wasn't so much except for this, the X-Men, but still, this book I thought was pretty cool. You got my favorite character, Nightcrawler, right there. Looking pretty awesome. Had to pick it up, right? Speaking of Nightcrawler, I've always loved Nightcrawler as a member of the X-Men, but when I got into comic books in the early 90s, he was not on the X-Men. He was on the Team Excalibur, which was basically a mashup between the X-Men universe and the UK Marvel universe, namely Captain Britain. And it was written originally by Chris Claremont, my favorite writer. They started in 1987 in a one-shot sort of special edition. They went on to have their own ongoing series, but then there'd be several subsequent special edition books. And here's the second one. So this is Excalibur Mojo Mayhem from 1989. Once again, it's a one-shot story written by Chris Claremont. And even better, the art in this one done by one of my absolute favorites, Arthur Adams. So it's cool, guys. You know, the way they kind of presented these was that they were more of like a bookshelf format, right? There's no ads in it. It feels like more like a graphic novel. And yeah, I've never seen this book before. I knew it existed. There's a couple other special editions as well. But yeah, I saw it. There were a couple of copies of these. This is like mint condition, and I thought I'd get it to read it. I thought it'd be pretty cool. Excalibur was also known because it had a really kind of lightness about it, a lot of humor. And you can see here, this story features the X-Babies, where all the X-Men became babies. Comic books are weird, guys, especially in the 80s. Even Chris Claremont, who I love, some weird ideas going on, right? So I'm curious to see what's going on in this book. For $3, absolutely happy to pick this up and add it to my Excalibur collection. Okay, this is why I love hunting at places like this, guys, because you end up with stuff you would never buy otherwise. I found this, and man, did it intrigue me, and I had to get it. And it's this. So this is Ultraman #1 from 1993, and this is the first appearance of Ultraman in US Comics. Now, for those of you who don't know who Ultraman is, he's a Japanese creation that started in the 60s. He had a television show, very similar in the same vein as like the Kaiju Godzilla type shows that they did back then. And what he is, he's basically an alien, like with a suit, and he combines with a human being. You know, basically he can grow and become huge or regular size. He's a superhero, but he'd get big and fight Kaiju and things like that. I am way oversimplifying Ultraman, guys. I apologize to any Ultraman fans out there, but he's a pretty cool character. I really like a lot of these, you know, Japanese shows back in the day. They have a great aesthetic. They're kind of goofy, man in suit kind of things. But Ultraman is cool. I think he's awesome. But look at this comic book, guys. This is a virgin cover. No title on it whatsoever. Before that was really a thing. This cover here is done by Ken Stacey, and I just thought it was awesome. I had never seen this before. I didn't know what it was, and I was shocked to find out it's from 1993. How crazy is that? So awesome comic book right there. And I also didn't know it was his first appearance in US Comics. So let me know down in the comments if any of you are Ultraman fans out there. Just happy to get this. I thought it was pretty awesome looking. Great addition to the collection for $3. Which brings me to the free comic book. So here we have our 4 bagged and boarded comics, so that means I get a 5th one for free. And what I did the last time I was at Zombie Hideout is I reached into a random box, and I wanted to just, whatever I find, bring it home and talk about it. I thought it would be fun. But I don't read enough DC, and as you can tell, there were no DC books in the ones I just showed you. So the last time I was there, I tried grabbing a Batman book, and I failed. I reached into the Batman box, and I pulled out a completely different book. I pulled out a Brightest Day comic book. So this time, I could have gone anything random, but I said, you know what? I got to make up for last time. I need a Batman book. So I reached into the Batman box, and sure enough, not only did I get a Batman book, but I got an awesome one. It's this. This is The Dark Knight 3, The Master Race from 2015. And I didn't know what this was when I first pulled it out, guys. And then I started looking at who worked on it, and we have Frank Miller himself. We have Andy Kubert. We have Klaus Janson. And then I realized kind of what this was. You know, this is basically the third Dark Knight storyline, once again, by Frank Miller. It's a sequel to the original Dark Knight, and the Dark Knight, you know, strikes again. And yeah, it's a 9-part series that they decided to, you know, sort of revisit this older Batman, older Bruce Wayne. And yeah, I had no idea, guys, that this even existed, to be honest with you. Again, I'm not a big DC or Batman collector, so I was really happy that I pulled this book out. But then I was surprised I pulled out like a #1 issue. I'm like, how lucky am I that I actually got this book? I didn't want anyone out there thinking like I stacked the boxes and pulled this out intentionally. So I reached in just to see like if there were the rest of like the 9-part series in there. And there was like 10 of these in here. So my chances of pulling this out were really, really good. So if any of you think I'm just being overly lucky, no, trust me, I had a very high chance of getting this comic book. But yeah, I'm interested in reading this book. You know, I'm pretty excited about it. I like Frank Miller. You know, it inspired me to throw the Batman t-shirt on for you guys. So pretty awesome, lucky pull for my extra book. Let me know down in the comments if any of you have read this series, and let me know what you think of it. So the last comic book that I got is a pretty cool one, but it wasn't one of the cheaper books. This was in one of the long boxes where they were individually priced. So I paid a little bit more for this one, but man, am I happy I did, because it's this. So this is the Rocketeer Adventure Magazine #1, published by Comico in 1988. Now, the Rocketeer, most famously, was created by Dave Stevens in Pacific Publishing back in the early 80s. But it seems like Dave Stevens, kind of like wherever you went back then, all these like independent publishers, they either folded or they closed or whatever, and those properties bounced around. So it went from, you know, Pacific Publications off to Eclipse, I think, and then Comico picked it up. And this is the first appearance of the Rocketeer in Comico Comics. And of course, this has 2 stories in it. A lot of these had multiple stories, and one of them is written and drawn by the incomparable Dave Stevens, who did the cover art right here. I've talked about this on my channel many times in the past. I really like Dave Stevens. I think he's one of the best artists that's ever lived, you know, a light that burnt out far too quick. But several of my friends love him, namely Jeff from Comic Spa or Alan the Comic Collector Geek. Absolutely love Dave Stevens. So I've been paying more attention to these books. And if I see a really good Dave Stevens book, I collect it. And I have a kind of a little fledgling, you know, Dave Stevens collection. But then I recently watched the Dave Stevens documentary on Amazon called Drawn to Perfection. And man, guys, I went down the rabbit hole. I think this guy is absolutely fantastic. And I've been really trying to collect more of these books when I can find them, as long as I'm, you know, not spending too much money. So this one cost $10. I'm happy to buy this for that amount and, you know, throw it in my Dave Stevens collection. Also interesting, he only did one of the stories. The other one is a new series by several people, and there's a couple big names in there. We have Mike Kaluta and Charles Vest did the art. So yeah, you know, a whole bunch of cool artists all packed into one comic book by sort of obscure publishing company. So let me know if there's any Dave Stevens fans out there, guys. I'd love to hear from you. So all in all, a pretty successful lunch money lunch break for me. Like I said, guys, you know, this is how I like to collect. When I'm walking around places like this, going through these long boxes, picking out cheap comic books, I'm just in my happy place. And I am just as excited to spend $22 on books like this than I am getting any of those bigger books at comic book shows. Head on down to the comments and let me know if you feel the same way. Also, let me know which of my pickups you like the best. That's it. In the meantime, I hope you keep hunting for comic books in strange and unusual places as well. Thank you guys so very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.